The Adventures of Geo the Pebble, written and read by Gerald Whetter. The hero of this adventure story is Geo, a pebble. Yes, that's right, a smooth little pebble. Geo was born many years ago at the top of a mountain. On the day of his birth, Geo broke off the mountain and became his own rock. We're not sure how it happened. Maybe a goat stepped on a crack and the crack split open and Geo was born? Or maybe a playful cave boy pried open the crack with a stick. Baby Geo was the size of a watermelon, and he was way too heavy for you to lift. Geo inched down the mountain year by year. It was like a playground slide, but very, very slow. Geo didn't say, "Whee!" He said, "Oh, when will I ever get to the bottom?" A few pieces rubbed off Geo on his way down. When he got to the bottom, he was the size of a football. The funny thing about rocks is they get smaller as they get older. Not like you. Life at the bottom was more fun than up the cold mountain. Sunlight shining through the trees covered Geo in shadowy leaf shapes. Soft green moss grew on his dark side. Squirrels and lizards and bugs climbed on him and kept him company. Sometimes they pooped on him. One day a big man came and picked up Geo and took him away. The man was building a wall around an ancient city. The people of the city wanted to keep out wolves and other intruders. The wall was as high as a house. A stonemason cut off Geo's round sides so he could fit snugly in the wall beside all the other stones. Now he was the size of 2 pieces of toast put side by side. From his spot near the top, he could see down the valley and up the mountain where he came from. He could see people coming and going on the road, carrying tools, herding sheep, or waving their arms and telling stories. At night he could see shooting stars, campfires, and sometimes wolves. Stone walls last for hundreds of years. Geo's did. He watched as the city got bigger and bigger and sprawled beyond the wall. This gave Geo so much more to look at. He saw kids playing with sticks and balls, workers building houses, and people holding hands. A few times he saw robbers stealing money out of purses. Geo wanted to shout out, "I know who did it!" But he couldn't talk. One day the people of the city decided the wall was too small and too old. The people decided to use the stones for other things. Some stones went into ships. The old city had a factory near the water where workers made big wooden ships to cross the oceans and explore the world. Workers put stones in the bottom of ships to help the ships to not tip over. It worked most of the time, except in bad storms. Geo was pulled off the wall and put into a ship that would sail to Newfoundland and Florida and Venezuela. Riding in the ship gave Geo a funny feeling. At first he felt sick, but then he got used to it. Geo couldn't see anything in the bottom of the ship, but he heard lots of interesting conversations. Sailors talked about discovering new places and collecting treasures like gold and chocolate. Geo bumped against other rocks at the bottom of the ship and got a little smaller. He shrunk to the size of your shoe. One day, while anchored beside a little island, all the sailors suddenly jumped off the ship and swam to shore. A big storm was coming. Rain filled the ship with water. Wind ripped off the sails and cracked the main mast. Then with one final blast, the storm flipped the ship over. It sank to the sandy bottom. Geo sank with the ship. Don't be sad about that. Stones don't need to breathe, so he was okay underwater. In fact, he really liked it. The water was warm and lots of colorful fish swam around him. Geo saw eels and seahorses and tiny plankton in the forest of seaweed. he saw sharks every day. A few little fish hid behind Geo, so big fish didn't get them. Over time, the old wooden ship rotted away, and the currents of water made Geo smooth and shiny and smaller, about the size of an apple. 2 barnacles grew on his face. Geo really stood out. He was like a special treasure, which is why a diver noticed Geo and picked him up. The diver put Geo in a suitcase and took him north to a big city with streetcars and skyscrapers. Geo sat in a dish over the fireplace in a lovely house with yellow walls, a piano, and a big window. Geo was with other fancy stones and seashells and driftwood. Through the big window, Geo could see the street where kids rode bikes and fire trucks zoomed by with their lights flashing and sirens blaring. Geo saw the elm tree leaves go from green to yellow and then fall on the ground. He saw people bundled up and waving angry fists at the cold wind. One day, a young man picked up the dish and dumped it out on the street, just like that. I guess he didn't realize what treasures were in that dish. A street sweeper picked up Geo and tossed him in a messy bucket with dirt and leaves and candy wrappers and other pebbles. At the end of the day, Geo was sifted out of the junk and put into a pile with the other pebbles. He had lost his barnacles and was the size of a plum. A while later, a big loader came and scooped up Geo and some other pebbles and put them in a dump truck. The truck took them where workers were making a new street. When the truck dumped its load, Geo rolled and bounced over the sidewalk and into the grass. He didn't get covered with pavement. He stayed right there in that spot until you came along. It took a long time for you to find him. Without even noticing, you kicked Geo down the sidewalk, you played street hockey on top of Geo, and your grandma drove over him with the wagon. One time when you were laughing, your gum fell out of your mouth and landed on Geo. Later, the gum stuck to the bottom of your dad's shoe. Today, you finally noticed Geo. You bent down and picked him up and looked at his markings and his shiny, dark color. He was the prettiest pebble you had seen in days. You put him in your pocket for safekeeping. The end.